This is Jason Anderson, and I am calling this regular town council meeting to order. It is currently 7:01 p.m. on May 10th, 2022. We will actually start out with the public hearing on item 14A.
There was no comment submitted for the public hearing via email or written comment submitted.
We don't have a,
So item 14A is consideration and action on resolution adopting the affordable housing plan. So anyone who would like to make comments, come up to the podium, state your name and address. Any public comments?
there's no dial-in number either, right? So nobody can call in?
No,
for-
this is a in-person
in-person.
public hearing. The only option that they had would be to submit it via email.
Last call for public comments? Seeing none? Do I need a motion to close this?
You would just close the public hearing and then you would move on to your regular agenda.
So at this time, we will, seeing how there's no public comment, we will close the public hearing. Moving on the agenda is item 2. Mr. Wood.
Heavenly Father, again, we gather here to do the work of this great town. We pray that you would grant us wisdom and discernment on all the items that are brought here before us so that we might do good works that would honor you and do well by our citizens. We pray this in your holy and precious name. Amen.
For roll call purposes, all council members are in attendance except for Mr. Whitehead and Mr. Grandelski. Mr. Grandelski is going to be here a little bit later. Moving on the agenda, item 5, adoption of minutes of previous meetings. Can I get a motion to adopt 5A, special town council meeting minutes, April 2nd, 2022, 5B, special town council meeting minutes, April 4th, 2022, and 5C, special town council meeting minutes, April 5th, 2022.
So moved.
Motion's been
Second.
made by Mr. Wood, seconded by Ms. Barclay. Any comments, corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on the agenda, item 6, proclamations, presentations, proclamations, and declarations. We'll start out with 6A. A proclamation recognizing and supporting the Town of Killenly Constabulary, Connecticut State Police, and other law enforcement agencies. Whereas establishing a civil society requires a collaboration between the citizens of that community, law enforcement, and prosecutors. And whereas policing in American communities is a stressful, sometimes dangerous, and highly technical vocation in which officers know that every interaction is subject to being photographed, filmed, or audio recorded, and can be subject to public and media scrutiny. And whereas the public often draws conclusions regarding an officer's actions without the appropriate awareness, knowledge, or education of the circumstances of the incident. And whereas full support of communities and elected officials are necessary for law enforcement officers to do their job safely and effectively. And whereas increases in crime occurring as a result of law enforcement disengagement will be stemmed only by a clear and concise message to law enforcement that when they do the right thing, they will be supported by the citizen community, law enforcement leadership, prosecutors, and elected officials. And whereas in 2021, there were 637 line-of-duty deaths, including 21 K-9 officers in the United States, in which 438 had contracted COVID-19. As of May 2nd, 2022, there have been 107 line-of-duty deaths, including 8 K-9 officers in the United States, in which 52 had contracted COVID-92. And now be it proclaimed that the Killenly Town Council recognizes the extreme danger that comes with the chosen profession of law enforcement. Each day, when the men and women of our law enforcement agencies don their uniforms and equipment, they are accepting the responsibility to serve and protect the lives and property of their communities at all costs, which could include their life. We recognize that we live in a time of great turmoil, where the trust between many communities and law enforcement agencies is at an all-time low due to political and civil unrest. We recognize that despite this, the fine men and women of law enforcement report to work every day to uphold laws enacted by federal, state, and local governing bodies. We recognize their dedication to the town of Killenly, state of Connecticut, and the United States of America. Killenly Town Council, Jason Anderson, Chairman, dated at Killenly, Connecticut, this 10th day of May, 2022. Next item up on the agenda is 6B, proclamation recognizing May 2022 as Motorcycle Awareness Month.
Proclamation recognizing the month of May 2022 as Motorcycle Awareness Month. Whereas motorcycle riding is a popular form of recreation and transportation for thousands of people across the state and nation, and whereas motorcycles are a common and economical means of transportation that reduces fuel consumption and road wear and contributes in a significant way to the relief of traffic and parking congestion, and whereas the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Motorcycle Safety Foundation have named May as Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month, and whereas states and motorcycle organizations across this country will be conducting a variety of activities to promote the importance of motorist awareness and safely sharing the road with motorcycles and remind others to make themselves more visible to others. And whereas the Killenly Town Council wishes to promote the safety campaign of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration in their efforts to ensure the safety and well-being of all. Whereas all roadway users should unite in the safe sharing of roadways throughout the town of Killenly, Windham County, and the state of Connecticut to follow the rules of the road so that all citizens will remain safe. Now therefore it be proclaimed, the Killenly Town Council does hereby recognize the month of May 2022 as Motorcycle Awareness Month and urge all motorists to join in this effort to keep our roadways safe. Killenly Town Council, Jason Anderson, Chairman. And I'd like to note on that, there has been a lot of significant accidents here most recently, so please let's be more safe out there.
Thank you. Moving on to the agenda, next item up is item 6C, proclamation recognizing the month of May 2022 as Foster Care Recognition Month. Whereas children and youth are our hope for the future, and we assert that all children deserve a safe, loving, accepting, stable, and nurturing home. And whereas families serving as the primary support for identity development, connections, and self-esteem are the very foundation of our communities and our state. And whereas this year, National Foster Care Month is committed to highlighting the importance of relative and kinship care placements to maintain family and cultural connections. And whereas in Connecticut, there are over 3,280 children and youth in placement of foster homes with kinship and resource providers, where their needs for safety and belonging are ensured until their families can safely resume parenting responsibilities. And whereas many foster families create permanency for children and youth through adoption when those children and youth cannot safely return to live with their birth families. And whereas foster care providers, along with public and private community partners, support the transition of youth and young adults to successful independence. And whereas in these unprecedented times, we honor the enduring contributions of foster, kinship, respite, and adoptive parents, and we recognize the outstanding service and commitment these families provide to Connecticut children, youth, and their families. Now therefore be it proclaimed, the Killenly Town Council does hereby recognize the month of May 2022 as Foster Care Recognition Month, in which we honor and recognize valuable and essential service of foster, kinship, respite, and adopted families in our community and the care, support, safety, and guidance they provide. Killenly Town Council, Jason Anderson, Chairman, dated at Killenly, Connecticut, this 10th day of May 2022. I would like to add, anyone who's ever thought about becoming a foster parent, I highly encourage it. Coming from someone who's been through the foster care facility, foster care system, there's always a need for it, and it can have a huge impact on a child's life. Moving on the agenda, the next item up is item 6D, proclamation recognizing the month of May 2022 as Lyme Disease Awareness Month.
Whereas Lyme disease was discovered in 1975 by rheumatologists who found high incidence of arthritis in children and adults living in Lyme, Connecticut. Lyme disease is an infectious disease caused by Spiracectal bacteria and Borrelia burgdorferi and transmitted through the bite of infected ticks. And whereas Lyme and other tick-borne diseases are prevalent across the United States, improper removal of the embedded ticks is dangerous and increase the risk of infection. However, prompt treatment in early infection may cure Lyme and other tick-borne diseases, preventing permanent damage of future complications. And whereas Lyme disease has the potential to affect the brain, joints, and other body organs, mimicking the symptoms of several other diseases. Symptoms of Lyme disease vary from each individual patient and in varying intensities throughout the duration of the disease. Many are misdiagnosed with other familiar conditions, and whereas the science that surrounds Lyme and other tick-borne diseases remains unclear, prompting the need for citizens and healthcare providers to take all tick-borne diseases seriously to prevent illness. And whereas the best prevention against tick-borne diseases is prevention, wear long pants and long sleeves outdoors in wooded areas and use repellent, obtain an education to recognize ticks, how to remove and dispose of them, and seek early treatment if you have been bitten or show signs and symptoms of a bite. Now therefore be it proclaimed, the Killenly Town Council does hereby recognize the month of May 2022 as Lyme Disease Awareness Month and urged our citizens to become more aware, educated about these illnesses and how they can protect themselves. Killenly Town Council, Jason Anderson, Chairman, dated Killenly, Connecticut, this 10th day of May 2022. And as somebody that's had Lyme disease at least 3 times, it's very, very important to seek out that early treatment.
Thank you very much. Moving on the agenda, the next item up is 6E, proclamation recognizing the month of May 2022 as National Military Appreciation Month. Whereas the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, enumerated in our Declaration of Independence, secured by the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and enjoyed by every citizen of the United States, are secured by the dedication of the members of the United States Armed Forces. And whereas the sacrifices made by all members of the United States Armed Forces and their loved ones are to be valued, and the brave men and women of our community who served and enlisted, ready to defend our homeland and safeguard the freedom and values for which we stand, deserve our recognition. And whereas National Military Appreciation Month, NMAM, is celebrated every May and is a declaration that encourages U.S. citizens to observe the month in a symbol of unity. And NAM honors the current and former members of the United States Armed Forces, including those who have died in the pursuit of freedom. And whereas the month of May is characterized by 6 national observances which highlight the contributions of those who have served: Loyalty Day on May 1st, Public Service Recognition Week, May 1st through May 7th, Victory Day in Europe, aka VE Day, on May 8th, Military Spouse Appreciation Day on May 6th, Armed Forces Day on May 21st, and Memorial Day on May 30th. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed, the Killenly Town Council does hereby recognize May 2022 as National Military Appreciation Month, as a symbol of unity to recognize, honor, and support the commitment and sacrifice of current, former, and Killing Town Council, Jason Anderson, Chairman, dated at Killing, Connecticut, this 10th day of May, 2022. We'll now move on the agenda. Next item up is 7, unfinished business for town meeting action, which we have none, so we'll move on to item 8, citizen statement and petitions. Ms. Gloria, do we have any submitted?
No citizen statements or petitions were received by email or written.
Thank you. At this time, if anyone would like to make any comments, please come up to the podium, state your name and address.
Norm Farren, Squaw Rock Road in Killingly. I am here tonight not as the BOE liaison, but to express some grave concerns about a town council member that has been coming to BOE meetings and shouting out from the audience, disrupting 2 meetings so far. I would like to know how Mr. Grandelski can be on the town council for so many years and still have absolutely no idea how to conduct himself at Board of Education meetings. Is it arrogance? It can't be ignorance, not after that many years of experience. Mr. Grandelski came to one meeting, missed the sign up for public comments by close to an hour, so knowing full well the procedure, went over to the recording secretary's desk, took the sheet and attempted to sign up for public comments. When he was told that the sign-up period was long over, he proceeded to yell out to BOE membership as he angrily left the room, claiming that we don't properly post the rules. Really, Mr. Grandelski? You are not familiar with BOE meeting rules? You were under the impression that sign-ups last all night and there is no time limit whatsoever? The second instance involved him yelling out to us, myself in particular, demanding that we immediately stop a discussion that we were having and vote immediately on a motion, as he felt that we were not following Robert's rules. Really, Mr. Grandelski? Is it your impression that Robert's rules allows for members of the public to yell out their demands from the audience and disrupt meetings? This poor conduct really needs to stop. It reflects poorly in this town. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Last call for public comments. Seeing none, we'll move on the agenda. Next item up is item 9, council and staff comments. I will say, as chairman of the town council, I apologize for the council members' actions. I would like to believe that we, as council members, we hold ourselves to a little bit of a higher standard. And to the Board of Ed, if anyone is getting out of line at meeting, you can actually ask them to leave the room, and if they don't leave the room, you can actually have them removed. Unfortunately, there are times when members of the public or in this situation an elected official disrupt meetings and make it harder to run a meeting and conduct the business that the town council or the Board of Ed are there to do. And again, on behalf of the council, as chairman, I apologize for Mr. Grandelski's behavior. Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll move on in the agenda. Next item up is item 10, appointments to boards and commissions. Mr. Izzo is seeking reappointment to the Zoning Board of Appeals as a regular member. The term would run from February 1st, 2021 through January 31st, 2026. Mr. Izzo has been a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals as a regular member since February 2016. Previously was an alternate member since October 2012. His attendance has been steady over the course of his appointment. The Zoning Board of Appeals is a commission of 5 regular members and 3 alternate members. Currently, there are 4 active regular members, including Mr. Izzo. There are 3 alternate members seek vacancies. Can I get a motion to reappoint Mr. Izzo?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made by Mr. Wood, seconded by Ms. George. Discussion? Comments? I would just like to state that, as far as all our council members, or excuse me, all our commission members, and boards, that I just wanna thank them all for their service. It's a volunteer position, but it can be a rewarding position as well. So I always encourage people to apply for any vacancies we have. Without our board and commission members, it's very difficult for the town to do the business that it needs to do. Mr. Coolidge?
I'd just like to add that he's a good member on there. He's been active since 2012, so he had mentioned to us how much studying he does for those meetings to be prepared, so I'd like to see him continue to remain on.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. We'll now move on to the agenda. Next item up on the agenda is item 11A, Board of Education Liaison. Any questions?
Can you tell me what's happening with the Black Lives Matter flyer that was handed out and the class that was taught?
Now, didn't Dr. Nash say there's really no way to police that, though? Because they can pull what they want off the website?
I don't remember her saying that, but it does make sense since, unless you had somebody monitoring everything coming out of the classroom, you don't catch it in real time. So I think our best line of defense is for parents to continue to make us aware of any violations like that so they can be acted on, and hopefully the repercussions become more severe as time as issues further incidents.
Now, that was gonna be my next question, because there's been a few incidents at KIS. Is there a procedure in place, like this is your, first issue, second, like, is there a disciplinary in place for
Not that I know
teachers
of. That would be a
or
question
staff?
for the superintendent.
Okay, can you ask him that?
I can ask him,
Okay.
absolutely.
Thank you.
This is just that now that the budget time is almost over, that the BOE and the Town Council Fiscal Subcommittees get together to work on the transparency of the BOE budget, so that another 10 months doesn't go past.
Right. Yeah, I mean, everyone's willing to do that, and we think it's an important issue, and we need to address it. We've tried to address some issues related to that in meetings with limited success. So, hopefully working together, we can get more accomplished as far as that goes.
Thank you. Mr. Wood?
Now, I believe on your agenda, you've had multiple times where you've asked, or you've had issues with the high school. Is that correct?
We were going to address that,
Mhm.
and the administration was, at the high school, was unavailable due to illness. And so it got taken off the agenda because we wanted them there to answer any concerns that, the public or board members would bring up. And then with the complaint that, 1040 complaint that was put in, we're going to table that until the state
And I assume, and obviously without going into great detail, that there are some serious things that have been brought to you and your members there for this to actually be on the agenda.
Yeah, there's been some disturbing incidents that have been reported.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Do you have any questions for us? Fiscal subcommittee meeting together. I do as well. Okay. Thank you very much for coming tonight. We'll now move on to the agenda. Next item up is item 7B, Borough Council Liaison.
Lynn's been still recovering, so she wasn't able to make it. I don't know if Tammy has a report.
I was actually at our regular meeting in April, and I was actually having some stomach stuff, but we're acting tomorrow on our ARPA considerations, so that's the big one, and then the week after that is our regular meeting, so I know our budget went through. It's going to be a flat mill rate, so things are kind of going along.
Thank you very much. All right, nothing else, we'll move on in the agenda. Next item up is 12A, discussion and acceptance of monthly budget reports. 12A is summary report on general fund appropriations for town government. Can I get a motion to adopt this?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made by Mr. Wood, seconded by Ms. Wakefield. Any discussion, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on in the agenda, 12B, discussion and acceptance of monthly budget report system object based on adjusted budget for the Board of Education. Can I get a motion to adopt this?
So moved. I'll second.
The motion was made by Ms. Barclay, seconded by Ms. George. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is 13A, Town Manager's Report. Ms. Gloria.
So the first part of the report, I again gave you just some monthly comparisons with regards to COVID and with regards to the vaccination status of Killingly. I was hoping to phase out of that for this upcoming month, but as we continue to have periodic spikes, I feel you need to still have that information, so I'm trying to provide that. Killingly Memorial School project, I reported at the last meeting that we were seeking special legislation with regards to the space standard waiver. Simultaneously, we were still working with Office of School Construction to get a space standard waiver granted. And ultimately, we were successful with the Office of School Construction in granting that space waiver for the project. So we did not have to continue to pursue special legislation. I did work with all of our legislators and some that don't even represent Killingly as far as trying to activate that special legislation, and I truly appreciate all of their time and efforts in that process. But ultimately, we were successful. We took a different approach with Office of School Construction and really outlined the space deficiencies throughout that don't meet the current standards throughout the entire facility, which really highlighted the problem that we were initially telling them that it was inefficient based on the 1940s design, which is identified within the statutes as it is. So we were successful in that. And so we've maintained our 72% reimbursement rate. Right. It's fantastic. So, and that was a lot of really hard work by Antonazzi, our architect. They really were the ones that, in working with Office of School Construction, really looked outside the box and thought of alternative ways to present the information. And it worked very well. The WPCA, so the plant operations have been, we've been contracting that out to Suez, formerly United Water, since 2005. We were at the final end of one of our contract extensions that we had that's expiring in June of 2022. The WPCA had wanted to look at doing an RFP, which we did perform an RFP process. We had only received one respondent on that. And ultimately, the WPCA has decided, they looked to do a one-year extension that's in our current agreement with Suez, but Suez had declined that option to do a one-year extension. So we're in the process of transitioning the wastewater treatment plant operations to town staff. So you'll see that we have postings open right now for all of our class positions within the WPCA. We'll be taking town control of the facility on July 1st. We've already started the decommissioning process with Suez and the transitioning of all the vendors and all of that over to the town. I will begin interviewing for staff next week. And so we'll be interviewing staff for coming on board effective July 1, as Suez will still maintain operations of that facility through June 30th. So any hires will take effect for July 1. We're working with our legal team as well as our IT team in order to work through the transition. So I just wanted to keep you all apprised of that, and you know, we're giving updates to the WPCA members.
If you're done with that, before you move on to the next thing, I just have one question. Would it be worthwhile to bring new employees on a short period ahead of time? That way they could be there for a transition period instead of Suez leaving and then the new employees taking over right away?
Sure, and that's a great question. The positions are open to all, and there may be a probability that we might be hiring existing staff that currently work there.
Okay.
So there's a good possibility we're not gonna necessarily, but it's open, we're not sure. And so if we do have all brand-new staff, then we would wanna, but ultimately, you wouldn't bring them on beforehand, only because Suez is responsible for the operations through June 30th. Their employees are required to stay on staff, so you're not gonna bring in alternative staff ahead of that. They would have to come in on July 1. So that's part of that legal. But it is open for all. And so I want to be clear that the reason that the transition from Suez to town has nothing to do with existing staff that are currently operating our plant. There's no issue or concern with that whatsoever.
Thank you. One other question I have, do you have any idea what kind of impact this will have on the town's operating budget? Or
So on the
actually,
WPCA, so this would only impact the WPCA budget, not the town's operating budget. So the town does not contribute to the WPCA, the sewer authority budget. And it would only, any impact would be to the sewer user rates. At this point, we are not anticipating any need to modify sewer user rates. We would likely hold everything steady for at least a year to get, get through the initial implementation and any initial upfront purchases, and then we would look to see what modifications might need to happen to user rates in a subsequent year. So we have there's no expected impact on user rates in the upcoming year.
Now, the employees that would be working there, would they be town employees covered by town benefits?
Correct. So they're all
Unemployment, any insurances?
correct, and so they would be town employees, and they would be at this point non-union, so they would fall under they fall under all of our employee benefit packages as we existingly stand with what we have available. So our personnel policies, all of that.
Okay. So those benefits would come out of the WPCA's?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Anything associated with this transition all comes out of the WPCA. Any town employees that we hire are all then charged to the WPCA. Nothing transitions over to the general government. It's a separate department.
Thank you for that clarification.
Sure. If everybody's good with that one, I'll move on to number 4, upcoming road work. So I just wanted to give you we have a couple of larger repaving projects that are starting next week. So Cranberry Bog from Cook Hill to Bailey Hill, we'll be starting that approximately May 16th. And again, remember that these are only approximate dates because weather can change this. You know, if we have some significant rain over the next couple of days or even the beginning of that week, then they won't be able to start it on those days. So Cranberry Bog, we're expecting that duration is going to be about a week. They will then begin the process of Franklin, East Franklin, and Furnace. So all of them aren't going to be under construction at the same time, but they will basically kind of start the path and follow all the way through. Those will also be about a week duration, and that's again beginning about the same time. They both Franklin, East Franklin, and Furnace. The main portion of that repaving will take about a week. There will be subsequent smaller construction activity that's going to be happening on those roads for a week or two afterwards, and that is where if they have to reset any utility covers, manhole covers, any of that, that will happen subsequent to the repaving. Lastly, the other part of the road maintenance, just to give you the list of roads that they're going to be doing crack sealing in May, and I believe that we're looking at those to occur really closer towards the end of the month. It'll likely take less than a week for all of this crack sealing across the entire town to occur, but that's the list of roads that they're going to be doing for this wave of crack sealing. And again, that'll have a relatively low impact on residents. The roads don't get closed, but there is some delays and impacts. The next one, Springfest. So Springfest is occurring this Saturday. I just wanted to highlight, number one, that this is an outside organization that holds, manages, and organizes Springfest. So it's not the town or any of the town departments. It's not, the costs for this are not in the town operating budget. These are outside. We do have to supply law enforcement because of public safety. But traffic control, all of that is being managed by the organizers of the event. The biggest closure is going to be on Main Street from Academy Street to essentially the intersection at Broad Street. That we were looking at, initially we were looking at closures. They were looking at closures up until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I believe that that's been able to be scaled back to probably closer to 2 o'clock. So we'll be able to get that that segment of road reopened sooner. There's not going to be as much afternoon activity on Main Street itself, so we'll be able to get that reopened. But we've been working with the event organizers to develop safety plans, trash disposal, and just the general logistics of the event. It's a very large-scale event that requires a lot of detailed planning when it comes to logistics. The library. We have termites at the library. So the library staff alerted our building maintainer that they saw a swarm in their young adults area of the building. He investigated that. It was determined that there is a presence of termites there. We have engaged with an extermination firm to come out. So they are working on doing a treatment and providing an ongoing service to the facility. We're unsure, it's unclear as to how long they have been in the building, likely several years at this point in time. So we're determining extent of damage. In that building, the largest component of wood structure is all related to the roof. So we'll be having to do a thorough investigation of that area. We don't believe that there's any significant compromising, but that roof was actually slated. It's slated in 2023 in our capital improvement plan under bonding funds for replacement. It is due for replacement. So we may need to reevaluate how much we might need to do for contingency as they open up that roof. But it would also highlight the need to potentially look at bonding package in order to get some of these town infrastructure projects completed, because we don't have sufficient grant funds to seek for that. So we're evaluating what the overall damage is and trying to expedite the treatment to minimize any expansion of that damage.
See if termites
We've talked to Kerma. No. No. It's not. So, we'll be evaluating. You know, we always have ongoing conversations with Kerma, but, so, legislative update. I did give you the initial review of the budget, as passed by, the state in the budget, in the, legislative session. I just want to note that on the second line, it says that, you know, CCM caveats that this is, CCM has been informed of the estimates, but they can't be used for finalizations. Some of these grants, the town may not be eligible for. And so, for example, they did list that we are receiving, or we were budgeted to receive the Mohegan Pequot grant funding, which we're likely going to be ineligible for. So we did not include, we don't have that reflected within our budget, but I don't want people to look at this and say, oh, but we are actually getting it. This doesn't take into eligibility requirements. There's still a lot of information that we're digesting from the legislative session. One of the areas that I spoke on with, in many of our meetings was with regards to the motor vehicle. The state legislation did pass the modification of the valuation of our motor vehicles, but it's not going to be taking effect for another year. So the comment that we got from some of the state OPM was that, well, you'll have another legislative cycle to fix all the problems that are in this legislation, which there are a lot of problems in that legislation. So we'll be working, and I'll be working with CCM and COST, our two advocates really at the legislation, to advocate for what changes need to be made. But that was unfortunate that that legislation passed. And then I just listed the meetings that I've attended. You have two other items that I can quickly just mention with regards to communication. One is just a letter from the Agricultural Commission with regards to a member that has not been attending their meetings, so the request is to remove that position. That person's term has expired, so the council could just fill the seat as a vacant seat. You don't necessarily have to formally remove the person, but it could be filled because it's a ended term anyway.
Now, do we have someone coming for next month?
Yes.
For an interview for Ag Commission?
Hopefully, yes. And then the last communication is just a communication from an applicant that's before the Planning and Zoning, and they just were introducing their project to the town council. Again, they are going through their process with Planning and Zoning. I would advise the council to allow that applicant to go through the Planning and Zoning process, and have, the council shouldn't necessarily be taking up individual applicants.
Thank you. So that covers items 13B and C. We'll now move on to item 14A, consideration and action on a resolution adopting the Affordable Housing Plan. Ms. Gloria, could you go over this, please?
Do you want to get motions on the floor first?
Okay.
I'll make a
can I-
motion to approve this agenda item.
I'll second.
Motion has been made by Mr. Cottula, seconded by Mr. Wood.
I'll go over it. I just didn't want to I tend to forget when you haven't gotten a motion on the floor by the time we get through through presentation. So the affordable plan, the state legislation passed previous legislation cycle that all municipalities are required to submit an affordable housing plan for each municipality. We're required to submit it by June 1st. And so our town departments, our economic development department, planning and Development Department, as well as our Community Development Department, have all been working in conjunction with stakeholders and public to pull together our affordable housing plan that was presented to you last month with the full presentation. I have had legal team also review the plan that's presented before you. They had no revisions for that plan. Actually had a really great compliment, was that it was one of the most thoughtful plans that they have seen yet pulled together that was specific to our community. So I think our team did a really great job in pulling together the information out of our POCD that was applicable to our housing, but also recognizing all of the potential housing that we have available in Killingly. So you held the public hearing tonight for this plan. We would be looking for the council to adopt the plan as submitted, so it can be submitted to the state, and we would then be in compliance with that statute.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from council? It's always glad to hear when we get compliments on the work of our town staff. It's, as council chairman, I will say that I have always been impressed with the amount of, the quality of work we get from our town staff. And it's nice that they get recognized for it.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Any other comments?
Yes. I just also wanted to say the same, the detail that is in this, I don't think we'll get any pushback from some of the groups that are, you know, concerned with making sure every municipality is on board with everything. And the detail in this is fantastic, so great job.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. We'll now move on in the agenda. Next item up is 15A, new business, consideration and action on a resolution authorizing the revenue collector to suspend and transfer uncollectible taxes to the suspense tax book pursuant to Connecticut general statutes. Can I get a motion to adopt this?
So moved.
Motion has been made by Mr. Wood, seconded by Ms. Barclay. Ms. Gloria, could you go over this, please?
Sure, so this is an annual item that comes before the town council. By statute, the town can move really uncollectible accounts to a suspense list. It doesn't forgive them. They still can be collected upon, and we do actively collect on suspense list items when we're able to identify either the owner or they move back. You know, sometimes we have people that move out of state, we can't find them, and then when they move back in and they go to register their motor vehicle and they can't register it because we have an outstanding tax, we're able to collect it. So this essentially removes them from an active collection status, which means our revenue office has exhausted all opportunities and ways in which they may be able to collect this the outstanding tax. So the dollar value this year is a bit higher, and that is largely due to one of the tax sale properties. We had a lien on one of the properties with regards to demolition. Meaning I opted to proceed with allowing the tax sale to move forward, because then it reactivates the property into a potential development status, which in the long run gains the town property taxes that otherwise goes deficient. So that is the largest number on this. Other than that, the remaining value is fairly low. Last year we had about $12,000 that we moved over to suspense, so it's fairly low. I will say that our revenue office does a fantastic job on trying to work with residents or property owners, as well as diligently trying to make sure they maintain contact to be able to collect. So they do a really good job on that. As you can see, a lot of these are either unable to locate or deceased.
Thank you. I would like to add that this did come before the fiscal subcommittee, and the fiscal subcommittee did recommend that the full council adopt this.
Thank you.
Any questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. We'll now move on the agenda. Next item up is 15B, consideration and action on a resolution to appoint Mahoney, Sable and Company LLP, certified public accountants, to perform the town's audit for fiscal year 2021 to 2022. Can I get a motion to adopt this?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion has been made by Mr. Catula, seconded by Mr. Wood. Ms. Gloria, could you go over this, please?
Sure, so annually, the town council needs to appoint our auditing firm that will perform our audit for the for the fiscal year. That appointment needs to be done before June 30th, so we can engage in those audit services. So we've been utilizing Mahoney and Sable now for a number of years. We just are coming off of a contract with them. We would have gone out to RFP for this service because we've been with Mahoney and Sable now for a period of time. However, we've been monitoring the market on other municipalities that have been going out for RFP for auditing services, and we were seeing significant increases in fees on those responses to the RFP, even from audit firms that were incumbent audit firms in those RFP processes. Those fees were going up significantly. So we brought to the fiscal subcommittee our concerns around going out to RFP. Also the fact that Killingly, we are rather delayed in getting our financial information to our audit team for them to complete the audit in a timely manner. And that's an avenue that needs to be cleaned up. It's largely impacted on the Board of Education side and their struggles in being able to finalize and do a formalized closeout process on their side in a timely fashion, which is causing significantly more work on the audit team. There's nothing wrong with the material. I want to make sure everyone's clear that there's no concern with the financial expenses. It's just taking them a longer period of time. Once it's transmitted, they're not finding any findings within that. It's just a longer delayed period of time before they're able to get that information properly submitted. So with that, it does not put us in great stance going into an RFP, looking for potentially new contract, new auditors. We would see a significant increase. So we went back to our existing auditors, our current Mahoney and Sable, which, by the way, we have been very pleased with. The council overall has been very pleased with over these years, to see if we could negotiate a 3-year contract extension. What you're voting on tonight is really only appointing them for 1 year because the contract requires a reappointment every year. So it doesn't necessarily, you could decide next year based on performance that you don't want to reappoint them, right? So this was brought to the fiscal subcommittee, and they did recommend approval of this item to the town council. The proposed fee for the first year is $54,000, which is in line with what we have budgeted. And then you can see what they have proposed for subsequent years. I will say that for what we were seeing in the market for RFPs, most municipalities of our size were seeing upwards of $80,000 to $90,000. So,
Yeah, let's keep.
we felt it was an economic decision to make, especially since, for Jen and I've done municipal auditing in my previous employment. Jen comes from municipal auditing as well. We know what auditors are supposed to do. We know when they're doing their job and when they're not doing their job. And I will say, Mahoney and Sable, they are diligent. Even though we have been a client of theirs for a while, they don't skip steps. They don't become complacent with anything. They ask us the tough questions every year. If anything, I think they scrutinize us a little bit more because of me and Jen. But just because I think they like to ask all the questions. But they are, they're diligent about it. And I can't say that about every audit team that I've ever had working through the years. But Mahoney and Sable's audit team, they don't become complacent. They do a very thorough and complete audit each and every year. And I am very satisfied with the results that we get from them and their team.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? I'd just like to say that, and this is my opinion, the finance department between Jen and Mary, for Mahoney and Sable to give us this kind of pricing, we have to be doing a good job on our side. Because if not, I don't think they would have offered us this type of contract going forward. So.
And I will say, I think that this also reflects that I think that they recognize that the troubles and the difficulties that we're experiencing is overcomable, and that it may take a little bit more time, as sometimes that happens, but I think that they're recognizing that it's not, they're not gonna lose their shirts on this. It's been a good partnership with the town, and the struggles that we're seeing are not,
Fixable.
right, unfixable. That's what I meant, unfixable.
Thank
Now,
you.
Mary, part of the Board of Ed issue is their computer system, right? And they're looking at changing it out, upgrading it?
They are looking at changing their financial systems, and that may provide some, I think part of it is also just the level of staff. There's a lot of grants they're administering, they essentially have one business manager. There's just a lot to try and close out and track for, one individual. She almost needs to, she really needs to have an assistant to work as well. But, that's a balancing act that the Board of Education needs to, determine how that works within their overall scope and budget. But I think that's really what it boils down to, is when you have only one person that can reconcile and provide all of that financial data. I mean, Jen doesn't do it alone.
Right.
On our side, and so that's a challenge. And, I think it can be worked through. It's just how much support.
Thank you. Mr. Wood?
Excuse me. And that's one thing I wanted to point out too, was that, I know we identify that there are some issues on the Board of Ed, but Ms. Clark is one person, but she does a great job of what she can do herself.
Yeah, she
And,
does, and
yeah.
all the information that she provides is spot on.
Right.
There's never an issue or a concern, there's nothing ever, charged inappropriately or anything like that. It just takes time.
One person
do
can
it.
only do so much.
Right, it takes time.
And the one thing that you had brought up too, during fiscal subcommittee was that, the price that we're seeing is legitimately the price there. It's not an issue of, well, here's the fee, but we're gonna probably add in a few other things on the way.
Yeah, so that's definitely something that we saw in the RFP market when people were responding. They were getting lower numbers like this, but then the actual, during the audit process, the clients were getting additional fees on top of, oh, by the way, you're gonna get, billed for this additional time, or this reconciliation is additional cost. That's not the case with this. Mahoney and Sable has not back billed us or back charged us, even when they've had to redo processes because, they had to update numbers or something. They've never back charged us on that. We've not ever experienced that with them.
Right, and that's great for everybody to know, is that they've been upfront and honest with their, not to say that others aren't honest, it's just the little add-ons that you find out afterwards that you're like, hey, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, we don't get nickeled and dimed.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. We'll now move on to item 15C, consideration and action on a resolution authorizing the execution of a 3-year budget stabilization agreement with the Connecticut Interlocal Risk Management Agency, KERMA. Can I get a motion to adopt this?
I'll make that motion.
Motion has been made by Ms. George, seconded by Ms. Barclay. Ms. Caloria, could you go over this, please?
Sure. So KERMA is our insurance provider. They do our liability, auto, property, as well as our workers' compensation. We do have an independent insurance consultant that we use to help make sure that we are evaluating market and making sure that we're, holding KERMA's feet to the fire. But I will say KERMA has been a very good partner with the town over the years. Kerma has a program that allows the town to engage in a rate cap. So in other words, they cap how much the increase could potentially be over the next 3 years. By doing so, we agree that we're going to maintain as Kerma clients for the next 3 years. We did go to our insurance consultant on this to say, do we really want to do this? And they agree that there's nowhere else in the market that we're going to get rates for the rates that we get with Kerma, or the service level that we get with Kerma, if we were to go out to say like a, Travelers or another type of Prudential, like another insurance firm. This, again, is only a cap, which means the rate will not increase above that. However, if the rate would be less than that, say 1%, we would get the 1%, which they have done over the course of time. So if our rate wouldn't have gone, even up to that cap, it's not an automatic 3%. They do give us the lower amounts. Also, another note to make is that over the last 9 out of the last 10 years, Kerma has returned funds to all of the member towns. So this last year, Killingly received, I'm looking at Jen because now I don't remember the number off the top of my head. How much did we get for a member's distribution? 56,000 was returned to the town in member distribution. And so we've been receiving member distributions from Kerma, and that's basically because Kerma is made up of member towns. That we are not like a Prudential, we are almost like a self-funded, and we do that. So again, this came before the fiscal subcommittee. They reviewed this item, and it was recommended by the fiscal subcommittee to the town council for approval.
Thank you. Any comments from council? For the record, I just want to indicate that Mr. Grandelsky did join us at 8:02. And Mr. Grandelsky, we're on item 15C. Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. We'll now move on the agenda. Next item up is 16, council member reports and comments. Ms. Barclay, would you like to start?
From the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting held on April 18th, the Jolly Commons LLC, there was an application. They would like to excavate and remove gravel products, and that would be next to the existing Jolly Commons. And once they start, that project should be finished within 11 months. So that discussion will be continued. American Storage LLC centers planning storage on Westcott Road where the existing by right was. They just had some issues with snow removal, and so that has also been continued. There is going to be a public hearing on May 16th in regards to creation of cannabis establishments and how they would be established if they came to Killingly. There was a liquor permit requested for 162 Main Street, and also another one for Dayville Four Corners. The state increased the number of liquor establishments by 1 in Killingly, so they have to decide which of those two will get their permit, and I believe that's up to the state. The application for Killingly Memorial School's expansion and renovation was approved. What else do we have? The zone change for the Bennies from commercial to light industrial was approved, and now there's, the Melting Point Welding and Fabrication is looking for a special permit to, start their business in that area. There will be a public hearing on May 16th. And, there's also going to be a public hearing on May 16th, which allows garages to be built on rural development. Previously, you can only put up buildings on property if it was for farming, and now they would like to be, you'd be able to put a garage or storage area just for any property that you have, and not, it doesn't have to be considered for farming. And that is it.
Thank you. Ms. Wakefield?
I attended the Economic Development Commission meeting last week. Lots of stuff going on. We've had several ribbon cuttings in the last, I know Patty Ula and I were at a couple of those. I guess there was a small business academy with 10 potential entrepreneurs. And I guess that's pretty well attended whenever they have those. Of course, it was in the news that we got the $1 million grant for the Brickyard. If you haven't, if you remember, I remember when we originally saw the proposal and it was all that overgrown, the foundry was all overgrown. It's totally been cleaned out, and if you haven't been back there, you can actually envision like a little pocket park with, climbing things and picnic tables and stuff like that. So it's kind of exciting to actually see that, going on. Brownsfield, they talked about some Brownsfield assessments, the Blueville Mill. There's going to be, I believe there's an intern coming from UConn that's going to help with filling out the Brownsfield paperwork for that stuff, along with the Alexander Parkway Brownfield stuff. I know in the last couple of months, there's been significant discussion about the need for 30,000 square feet of storage space for a lot of local businesses, just to deal with supply chain issues and stuff like that. So, and then they were talking about the possibility of Worcester working to trying to get an Amazon headquarters because of the Worcester Airport, which would have direct impact because, that's literally right up the road from us on the highway. So, if we could get like the Blueville Mills make those into affordable apartments, it could not only help the affordable housing in the area, but it also would, be good for the. And then we had a very interesting discussion of the recreational cannabis, and how Jill when she brought it up, was talking about there was like 4,600 applicants and the state was only going to issue 12. And supposedly it's based off of how many, its population and I think it's percentage of arrests for amounts of cannabis. So it's supposedly Killenly would qualify for one cultivation and one distribution center, and I was like, okay, but
Well, that's based on population.
population, yeah.
So some of them, if they're servicing areas that are disproportionately impacted by cannabis use, then they can rise higher in the lottery. But our area doesn't qualify for that, so ours is purely based on population basis.
And then they actually talked about the melting point a little bit and whether they wanted, as a commission, to either recommend businesses or just kind of advocate for them. So I guess there's a historic element there, so I guess they have to get through the melting, yeah. I'm sure they probably will be. It'll be kind of nice to be swiping from another town. But we're good for that. But, other than that, dealing with the borough, and as a report for what we collected today with the budget referendum, approximately 4 to 5 baskets, along with a couple of cash donations. So I'll be dropping that all off to the Friends of Assisi come the end of the week.
Thank you. Ms. George?
NECOG was canceled, so I did not attend that. Conservation Commission was very busy. We talked about Springfest coming up. There will be a booth for the commission. We talked about a map being put together for each conservation location. Allison will be sharing that with us in the May meeting. And there's a report being put together for all the town properties that have easements and that need to be updated. So that was another thing we discussed. The Klondike location needs some brochures, so they'll be filling that. It's quite busy. Litchfield Avenue, they're looking to work on cleanup of about a 40-foot walkway. The trails are marked off in blue now, and the signs for the end of trail at the loop are up. So I get that location isn't utilized as much as some of the other ones, but we went down there. It's beautiful. It's really nice. I think people should go check it out. And they are looking at putting a kiosk there eventually, so they'll be looking at ideas for fundraising. Mary was in attendance, and she spoke about an update on the open space policy, and that was in section E. Is that up on the website if anybody wants to see it?
I believe that it is. It's spacing on me
think I
right
saw
now.
it.
I believe that
I
it's
think I
on there,
saw it.
but I'll double check that in the morning. So this is about the sale of town property.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. Also, Heather from the Green Team at Frito-Lay came in, and she was talking about volunteering her group. She is the environmental coordinator, and she wants to get involved and help the commission, volunteering her team from Frito to come in and help wherever they're needed. There's an area on Cook Hill Road and Gear Road. It was a subdivision, land conservation. They said it's about 30 acres. It's very swampy, but no one has walked that yet. So I think what they were getting at, they're looking to get some people up there. And then Donna gave us a very good tip, and I have to say it works because Paul and I went out in the woods and we were tromping around. She shared a tip for keeping ticks away, and while you're out in the woods. So you take bounce dryer sheets, literally, and you put them on your shoes, and the ticks just, we were out in the woods for probably 2 hours, me and the little guy, not a tick on us. So I just wanted to give that little tip. If anyone wants to try it, it definitely works. So thank you to Donna for sharing that. Board of Ed, let's see. They gave a proclamation for Pupil Services employee Linda Lewis. She was the employee of the month. There was a social emotional learning presentation done by the Director of Pupil Services, Kathleen Cody. Titan Energy came out and gave an update on the solar panel savings for all the school buildings and a forecast for the next year or so. And I believe they put that up on the school website if anyone wants to look at that. What else? Ongoing conversation about the health clinic, and I know there was a meeting the night after the Board of Ed on that, and Norm spoke to that this evening, and I think that's it.
Thank you. I attended the fiscal subcommittee meeting and the Inland Wetlands Watercourse Commission meeting I could not make because we had the annual town meeting last week. Mr. Cottula.
I attended the Permanent Building Committee meeting. They had interviews for 3 firms, and I believe those were for the architects. And they chose one at the end of that meeting. It was going to be Antonazzi. Open space land acquisition, we didn't have a quorum, and we're trying again for this month. I've noticed a couple at the town line. They've got new signs for entering Killingley or the Killingley town line. They're nice. It's a different style sign. I think it has the year of, that it was incorporated, and,
Yeah, Matt's
it's,
been redoing them all.
yeah, that looks nice.
That was
I like
Matt's
that.
newest design.
It looks good. So he's thinking, it's good. I like that.
He likes to play with signs.
Yeah, I noticed that, but it's good. They look nice. That's all I had.
Mr. Wood?
I attended the fiscal subcommittee as well, which was items 15A through C, so that was already discussed. Just want to wish everybody well with Springfest. Unfortunately, I can't make it. I'll be at a charity event. Our vice chair, I think, is joining me in that event as well. So we'll be having some fun out of state, actually. So, but I do wish everybody well and with attending.
Thank you. Ms. Murphy?
I attended agriculture, and the big thing there is a couple members that had to step down, so we're not meeting this month. So if anybody is interested in agriculture, it's a really cool commission. I went to the sewer commission, and the big thing there was the contract. So Mary already discussed that. They're doing good with their budget. They were in permit. They talked about abandoning the sewer line between Prospect and Buck Street and notifications for people. And they were pricing out some HVAC equipment, which I don't remember all the specifics about, but.
Yeah, it's for the building. It's a replacement for the HVAC at the facility.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Moving on in the agenda. Next item up is executive session 17A and 17B.
If I may give you a list of people that I would recommend the council incorporate into the executive session. It's a rather longer list than normal. So my request would be to include myself, for town staff, myself, the Economic Development Director, Jill St. Clair, and our Finance Director, Jennifer Hawkins, as well as our town attorney, Rich Roberts, our consultants from the Sanssouci, which is George Sanssouci, Matthew Sanssouci, and Jim Wheeler, and then a representative from CME, Ransom Cook.
I will entertain a motion to go into executive session, including all those people that Ms. Calorio just mentioned.
I'll make that motion.
I second.
The motion has been made by Mr. Wood, seconded by Ms. Murphy. Discussion? Seeing none, we'll move in executive session, and we will take a 2-minute recess so Mr. Catula can get back in.